Wait a minute!
I watched my son drown in mud while 20 people stood around and did nothing. His wheelchair was sinking, the rain hammered down like angry fists. Daniel's hands clawed at the wheels, but they just spun uselessly, digging him deeper into the thick brown sludge that was swallowing him whole. His eyes found mine across the construction site, wide, terrified, searching for the father who always saved him but couldn't move fast enough this time. That's when a kid in torn sneakers did what seemed impossible. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how we got there. You need to know why that moment changed everything I thought I knew about the world. Hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Someone close to you might be watching too. Like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Make sure to watch till the very end, because the final twist is something you definitely don't want to miss. So let's continue. 3 months earlier, I had everything. Or at least, that's what I told myself every morning when I woke up in my penthouse overlooking the city. My name is Richard Hayes, and I built an empire from nothing. Started with one construction truck and a dream, turned it into Hayes Development, the biggest real estate company in the state. 52 buildings, hundreds of millions in contracts. A name that made city officials return my calls within the hour. But none of that money could fix my son's legs. Daniel was 11 when the accident happened. We were on vacation, celebrating a major deal I'd just closed. He was riding his bike down a hill near our beach house, going too fast, laughing with that pure joy kids have before the world teaches them to be careful. A truck ran a stop sign. The driver was texting. The doctors saved his life, but Daniel would never walk again. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of watching my boy learn to navigate a world that wasn't built for him. 4 years of his mother, Caroline, slowly drowning in wine and pills until she couldn't look at either of us anymore. She left on a Tuesday, didn't even pack everything, just took her jewelry and her guilt and disappeared to some clinic in Switzerland. So it was just me and Daniel. And I was failing him, not with money. I could buy him anything. The best wheelchair, the finest doctors, tutors, therapists. But I was failing him in the ways that mattered. I was always working, always on calls, always promising tomorrow we'd do something together, and tomorrow never came. "Dad, can we go to the construction site today?" Daniel asked one Saturday morning. He was sitting at our massive kitchen table, looking small despite being 15 now. His dark hair was messy from sleep, and he wore an old shirt with a cartoon character I didn't recognize. "The Riverside project?" I looked up from my phone, where I'd been reading emails. "That's not a place for people like me?" His voice had an edge that cut deeper than he knew. "For anyone on weekends. It's not safe." "Nothing's ever safe enough for me, right?" He spun his wheelchair around, headed back toward his room. "Daniel, wait." But he was gone. And I let him go because I had a call with investors in 10 minutes. That was my pattern. Choose work. Apologize later. Repeat. The Riverside project was supposed to be my masterpiece. 40 acres on the waterfront, turning an abandoned industrial zone into luxury apartments, shops, parks. It would have my name on it forever. Hayes Plaza, my legacy in steel and glass. But the project was cursed from the start. First, we found contaminated soil that cost $3 million to clean. Then the permits got held up for months. Workers kept quitting, complaining about weird accidents and bad luck. My site manager, Pete, was superstitious. Said the land didn't want to be disturbed. "It's just dirt and old factories," I told him. "But stop spooking the crew." He wasn't wrong about the accidents. Tools vanished, equipment malfunctioned, a crane collapsed in perfect weather, nearly killing 2 people. And the money, God, the money was bleeding out faster than I could secure new investors. I needed this project to succeed, not just for profit, but to prove something. To prove that Richard Hayes could still build kingdoms, that the accident that took my son's legs didn't break me too. 3 weeks before everything changed, I did something I'm not proud of. There was a community garden on the edge of the property, just a small plot where local families grew vegetables. The land was technically mine. I'd bought it fair and square. But these people had been planting there for years, They asked for time to relocate, time I didn't have. Clear it out, I told Pete. Now. Sir, there's families here every day. Kids. They're asking for 2 more months. And I'm asking for my building to be on schedule. Clear it Monday morning. That Sunday night, someone spray-painted across my construction fence in huge red letters, "Rich man steals from the poor." I had it cleaned up before sunrise, but the words stuck in my head anyway. The neighborhood around Riverside was poor, not dangerous, just forgotten. Buildings with peeling paint, corners where old men sat on plastic chairs because they had nowhere else to go. Kids playing basketball on a court with no net, the kind of place the city stopped caring about decades ago. The kind of place I was erasing to build something shiny and expensive. "Dad, why do people hate you?" Daniel asked one morning, watching the news. Some local activist was being interviewed about greedy developers destroying communities. "They don't understand business," I said. "I'm making that area better." Better for who? The question hung in the air. I didn't answer it. That Friday, I made a decision I'd regret forever. I decided to bring Daniel to the site. He'd been asking for weeks, and I kept saying no. But my guilt was piling up like unpaid bills. I'd missed his school presentation, forgotten to pick him up from physical therapy, worked through dinner every night that week. "Tomorrow," I told him, "I'll take you to Riverside. You can see what we're building." His face lit up like I'd given him the world. I should have known better. Should have checked the weather. Should have listened to Pete when he said a storm was coming. Should have done 1,000 things differently. But I didn't. Saturday morning came with dark clouds and humidity that pressed down like a heavy blanket. Daniel was ready at dawn, dressed and waiting by the door. He'd drawn up questions about the project, done research on construction techniques. This meant everything to him. We drove through streets that got rougher the closer we got to Riverside, past the houses where I'd cleared the gardens, past walls tagged with more angry messages about my company. "Why are they so mad?" Daniel asked, looking out the window at the neighborhood. "Change is hard for people," I said. "They'll thank me when it's finished." The construction site was empty on weekends, just like I'd told Daniel. We parked near the fence and I helped him into his wheelchair. The ground was rough, not made for wheels, but Daniel was determined. He'd learned to navigate worse. "This whole area?" he asked, looking at the vast space of mud and machinery. 40 acres. In 2 years, this will be homes, stores, a park. What about the people who lived around here? Where will they go? Somewhere else. Daniel, this is how cities grow. Old makes way for new. He went quiet, and I knew that wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was the only answer I had. The sky opened up without warning. One minute we were looking at architectural plans I'd brought. The next, rain was pouring down in thick sheets, turning the world grey and blurry. The construction site became a lake in seconds. "We need to go!" I shouted over the roar of water hitting metal and earth. I grabbed the wheelchair handles and started pushing toward the car, but the ground was already turning to soup. The wheels caught in mud, stuck, wouldn't turn. "Dad, we're sinking." He wasn't wrong. The wheelchair was settling into the ground, mud rising up the wheels. I pulled harder, but physics wasn't on our side. The more I struggled, the deeper we went. Then I made my second terrible choice of the day. "Stay here. I'll get the truck, pull you out with a chain. Don't leave me." But I was already running, because that's what I did when things got hard. I went to grab something, fix something, call someone. I couldn't just be present in the moment, even when my son needed me most. The truck was only 50 yards away. I'd be back in a minute. I didn't count on the mud being so deep, didn't count on falling twice, didn't count on how long a minute feels when your child is scared. By the time I made it to the truck and turned around, Daniel had tried to move himself. The wheelchair had tipped. He was on his side, half in mud, trying to push himself up with arms that were strong from years of using them to move, but not strong enough for this. The mud was at his chest. I ran back, but it was like running through water. The rain was so thick I could barely see. Thunder cracked overhead like the sky was breaking, and people started appearing. I don't know where they came from, the abandoned factory maybe, or the houses beyond the fence. Men in work clothes getting soaked, Women under umbrellas that were useless in wind like this. A few teenagers in hoodies, 20 people, maybe more, all standing at the edge of the construction site, watching. "Help him!" I screamed. Please!" Nobody moved. I was still 10 yards away, might as well have been a mile. My legs were burning, my lungs were fire. Daniel's chair was completely sideways now, him clinging to it, mud at his neck. "Someone help my son." An old man stepped forward, close enough for me to see his face. He looked at me with something between pity and anger. "You took our gardens," he said quietly, though somehow I heard him through the storm. "You took our homes. You take and take. Why should we give? He's a child. He has nothing to do with everything we begged you to care about, you ignored." Time was running out. Daniel's grip was slipping. His face was pale, lips blue from cold or fear, or both. His eyes found mine one more time, and I saw something break in them. The trust children have in their parents, the belief that Dad can fix anything. I was going to watch that trust drown. Then a kid stepped forward. He couldn't have been more than 12. Black kid, skinny as a streetlight, wearing sneakers held together with duct tape and a shirt 3 sizes too big. Rain plastered his hair to his head. "I'll get him," he said. "Tyrell, no." A woman's voice. His mother, maybe, somewhere in the crowd. But Tyrell was already moving, not running but not slow either. Purposeful. Like he'd thought this through and made his choice. He walked right into that mud like it was nothing. It came up to his knees, then his thighs, then his waist. But he kept going, steady as a soldier, until he reached Daniel. I finally made it to the edge of the mud pit, but I couldn't go further without sinking myself. "Grab my hand," Tyrell told Daniel. "I can't leave the chair. Forget the chair, grab my hand." Daniel hesitated. That chair was his legs, his independence, his identity. Leaving it felt like giving up. "Trust me," Tyrell said, and Daniel let go. Tyrell grabbed him under the arms and lifted. The kid was all bones and determination, and Daniel wasn't small anymore, but somehow Tyrell got him positioned on his back. Then he started walking. Each step was a battle. The mud fought him for every inch. Tyrell's face twisted with effort, veins standing out on his thin neck. He slipped once, almost went down, somehow kept his feet. The crowd was silent. Even the thunder seemed to pause. 10 feet from the edge, Tyrell's legs buckled. He dropped to his knees, Daniel still clinging to his back. "Leave me," Daniel said. "Save yourself." "Shut up," Tyrell gasped. "Nobody gets left behind." He stood up. I don't know how. Physics says he shouldn't have been able to. But he did. 3 more steps. 2. 1. Hands reached out from the crowd, the same people who'd stood watching, and pulled them both to solid ground. I collapsed next to Daniel, pulling him into my arms. He was shaking, covered in mud, crying into my chest. "I got you," I kept saying. "I got you." But we both knew that wasn't true. Tyrell got him. A kid in broken shoes did what I couldn't. Someone wrapped a blanket around Daniel. Someone else offered towels. The crowd that had been so still was suddenly in motion, caring for my son like he was theirs. I looked for Tyrell. He was sitting on a concrete barrier, breathing hard, his mother checking him over while yelling at him about being reckless and stupid and brave. I walked over. My legs felt like rubber. "Thank you," I said. The words were so small for what he'd done. Tyrell looked up at me with eyes that seemed older than 12. "Your son was drowning." "I know. Everyone was just standing there." "You ever wonder why?" His mother's voice was sharp. She was a small woman with tired eyes and calloused hands. "You ever think about what you got to take from people before they stop giving?" I opened my mouth, closed it. Had no answer. "This neighborhood," she continued, "we take care of each other, because nobody else will. You come in here, tear down what little we got, don't even see us as people, just obstacles, and then you want us to jump when your family needs help? I never meant, what you meant don't matter, what you did matters." Tyrell touched his mother's arm. "Mama, he gets it." "Does he?" I looked at Daniel, still wrapped in blankets given by people I'd displaced. Looked at the construction site that was supposed to be my legacy. Looked at my hands that had built an empire but couldn't pull my son from mud. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I want to." The old man who'd spoken before stepped forward. "Words are cheap, Mr. Hayes. We know who you are. We know what you do. You're going to finish this project, push us all out, forget we exist." What if I didn't? The question surprised me as much as them. What if we did this different? Different how? Tyrell's mother crossed her arms. My mind was racing. Years of business experience clicking into place, but aimed at something new. What if it's not just my project? What if it's ours? Community ownership. Affordable units, not just luxury. Spaces for local businesses, not just chains. The gardens come back bigger than before. Jobs for people who live here, not just imported labor. That costs money, the old man said. Money you won't make back. I have enough money. What I don't have is... I looked at Daniel, at Tyrell, at the faces watching me. What I don't have is what you have. Community. People who show up for each other. Pretty speech, someone muttered. It's not a speech. It's an offer. Help me make this right. All of you. Tell me what this neighborhood needs, and I'll build it. Not for you. With you. Why should we believe you? I thought about that question. Why should they? I'd given them every reason not to trust me. Because my son almost died today, and you saved him. Even after everything I did, you saved him. That kind of grace, I don't know how to repay it, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying. Silence. Rain was letting up finally, turning from a pour to a drizzle. Tyrell stood up. He was shivering, covered in mud, looked like he'd been through a war. But he walked up to me and stuck out his hand. "I'll hold you to that," he said. I shook his hand. It was small and cold, and stronger than it had any right to be. "Deal." That was 4 months ago. I'm writing this from the site office. Not a fancy downtown tower, but a trailer right here at Riverside. Daniel comes here every day after school now. He's the official community liaison, a title he takes very seriously. He wheels around with a clipboard, checking on progress, taking notes about what works and what doesn't. The project looks different now. We're building 40% affordable housing. There's a community centre going up designed by local artists. The gardens came back twice as big with a full-time coordinator. We hired 60 people from the neighbourhood. Not charity jobs. Real positions with real pay and benefits. It's costing me an extra 30 million. My investors think I've lost my mind. Half of them pulled out. The other half are watching closely, waiting for me to fail. But something strange is happening. The accident stopped, equipment works, workers show up smiling. The project that was cursed suddenly feels blessed, and I'm making less money but sleeping better than I have in years. Tyrell comes by most afternoons. He and Daniel became inseparable. They're complete opposites. My son, who has everything except working legs, and this kid who has nothing except heart big enough to move mountains. But they understand each other in ways I'm still learning. Last week, Tyrell's mother, Sharon, brought me coffee while I was reviewing plans. We'd become something like friends, though she still called me out when I slipped into old habits of not listening. "You changed the game," she said, looking at the construction progress. "Tyrell changed it. I'm just trying to keep up." "No, you chose to learn. That's harder than you think. Most people, they get set in their ways, can't see different. You saw different. I saw my son drowning while people watched. That tends to clarify things." She nodded. "You know why we didn't help at first?" I'd wondered but never asked. "Because we're tired," Sharon said quietly. "Tired of giving and giving to people who take and never give back. Your company pushed out my aunt. She lived in one of those houses you bought. Had to move 2 bus rides away from her job. My cousin lost his community garden plot, spent 5 years growing vegetables there for his kids. You never saw that, never saw us. I see you now." "Yeah, you do. Question is, will you keep seeing us when the cameras go away?" Good question. Local news had run a story about the reformed developer. I'd done interviews about the new community partnership model. People called it redemption, public relations. But this wasn't about PR. This was about a promise made in the rain to a 12-year-old kid who risked everything for a stranger. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. 3 months into the new approach, something unexpected happened. Other developers started calling, not to criticize, to learn. They'd seen the Riverside model and wanted to know how it worked. "You're starting a movement," my lawyer said during a meeting. "I'm just building differently." "No, you're proving it's possible. Profitable development that serves communities people are watching." The truth is, I didn't care about movements. I cared about the kids playing basketball on the new court we built, the families planting vegetables in gardens my company now protected, the small businesses opening in affordable retail spaces. I cared about Daniel, who smiled more in 4 months than in 4 years, who had a best friend, who had purpose, and I cared about Tyrell. The kid was special, brilliant in ways the school system wasn't equipped to handle. He thought in solutions, saw angles nobody else saw. So I started teaching him about development, not the soulless kind I used to practice, but the kind that built communities up instead of bulldozing them. "Why do you want to learn this?" I asked him one afternoon. "Because people like you have power," Tyrell said simply. "If I'm going to change things, I need to understand that power, how it works, how to use it right." He was 12, and already wiser than I'd been at 40. Last month we had a community celebration. The first phase of Riverside was complete, a community centre with a library, computer lab, and indoor basketball court. Free to everyone in the neighbourhood. Hundreds of people came. Music, food, kids running everywhere. Daniel gave a speech about inclusion and accessibility. Tyrell cut the ribbon with Sharon beside him, both of them beaming. I stood in the back and watched. For the first time in my life, I'd built something that made people happy instead of angry. Something that would last not because my name was on it, but because the community owned it. Caroline called that week, first time in months. "I heard about your project," she said. "Sounds very different from how you usually work." "Everything's different now." "How's Daniel?" "Happy. He has friends, purpose. He's thriving." Silence on the line. Then, quietly, "I miss him." "Then come home." "I don't think I can face his wheelchair, his disability." "Caroline, he's the same kid he always was, braver actually, stronger. The only thing that changed is what you chose to see." More silence. "There's a kid here," I continued. "Tyrell saved Daniel's life. Carried him out of mud deep enough to drown in. And you know what Daniel said afterward? He said, 'I'm glad it happened.' Can you imagine? Glad he nearly died. Because it showed him what people can do when they care more about each other than themselves. I should have been there. You should be here now, not for me, for him." She didn't commit, but she didn't hang up either. Baby steps. That night, Daniel asked me something that cracked my heart open. "Dad, do you think Mom left because I'm broken?" We were in his room doing the nighttime routine, helping him into bed, making sure everything was within reach. "You're not broken, son." She couldn't look at me after the accident. I sat on the edge of his bed. Truth time. "Your mother was scared. Sometimes when people hurt, they run from the people they love most because it's too painful to stay. It's not right, but it's human. And it has nothing to do with you being broken because you're not. You're perfect. Perfect people can walk. Perfect people show up for their friends. They learn and grow and find new ways to do things. They inspire others to be better. You do all that. Your legs don't define you, Daniel. Your heart does. And your heart is the biggest thing about you." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Tyrell says everyone's got something broken. His dad left before he was born. His mom works 3 jobs. They live in a tiny apartment. But he's still happy. Tyrell's smart. He says happiness is choosing to see what you have instead of what you don't. Is that true?" I thought about my journey, building an empire while losing my family, having everything and feeling empty, nearly losing my son before learning what mattered. "Yeah," I said, "that's true." The next Saturday, Sharon invited us to dinner. Their apartment was small, one bedroom, cramped kitchen, furniture held together with hope and duct tape. But it was full of love in a way our penthouse had never been. We ate chicken and rice around a tiny table. Tyrell told stories about school. Sharon shared neighborhood gossip. Daniel laughed until his sides hurt. "This is nice," Daniel said as we were leaving. "Can we come back?" "Any time," Sharon said, and meant it. In the car, Daniel was quiet for a while. Then, "Dad, we have a huge apartment with empty rooms and they're cramped in that tiny place." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we have space we don't use, and they're family now, kind of. What if they lived with us just until they get on their feet? Sharon's working 3 jobs to save for something better. We could help." My first instinct was to say no, to list reasons why it wouldn't work, different backgrounds, different lives, complications. But then I remembered standing in the rain, watching my son sink and strangers who had every reason to walk away choosing to stay. "I'll ask them," I said. Sharon said no at first. Pride, independence, not wanting charity. But Tyrell wore her down. "It's not charity, Mama," he argued. "It's family helping family. They got space they don't need. We need space. Makes sense. And when they get tired of us?" "They won't," Tyrell said, with the certainty only kids have. He was right. Sharon and Tyrell moved in a month later. Sharon quit 2 of her 3 jobs. She kept the one she loved, working as a nurse's assistant. She'd go back to school for nursing, she said. Finish what she started before Tyrell was born. "You don't have to do anything," I told her. "Just being here is enough." "Nobody gets to just exist in my world," Sharon said. "I pay my way. I'll handle cooking, help with Daniel, manage the house. That's my rent." She was as stubborn as Tyrell was brave. Living together was strange at first, our worlds colliding in unexpected ways. Sharon organizing our chaos, Tyrell teaching Daniel video games, Daniel helping Tyrell with homework, awkward dinners becoming comfortable ones. One night, Sharon found me on the balcony, staring at the city. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How small everything looks from up here, like people don't matter. But they do. They're everything." "Took you long enough to figure that out. I was blind, rich and successful and completely blind." "You still rich," Sharon pointed out, "but not blind anymore. That's something." She smiled. "That's everything." The Riverside project continued growing. Phase 2 was breaking ground, more affordable housing, a medical clinic, a job training center. Other developers were copying the model. The mayor called it transformational. But the real transformation was quieter. It was Daniel laughing every day, Sharon pursuing her dreams, Tyrell becoming the little brother I never knew I needed. It was me, learning that the best things you can build aren't made of steel and glass. They're made of trust and second chances and showing up when it matters. 6 months after the incident, we held a ceremony. We were renaming the project. Not Hayes Plaza. That felt wrong now. Too much about me. "What should we call it?" I asked the community board we'd formed. People suggested names: Heroes Plaza, Riverside Commons, New Beginnings. But Tyrell had a different idea. "The Together Project," he said. "Because that's what it is, what it's always been, people coming together." Everyone loved it, the Together Project, simple and true. At the ceremony, Daniel gave another speech. He talked about falling in the mud, about being scared, about a boy who refused to watch someone suffer when he had the power to help. "Tyrell didn't know me," Daniel said from his wheelchair, microphone in hand. "I was just some rich kid on his side of town. He could have walked away. Everyone would have understood, but he didn't. He chose courage over comfort. And he taught me that disability isn't about what your body can't do. It's about what your heart won't do. My legs don't work. But my heart does. And I'm going to spend my life helping people the way Tyrell helped me." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Afterward, reporters swarmed us. They wanted the story, the dramatic rescue, the transformation, the fairy tale. But they missed the point. This wasn't about one moment in the rain, it was about every moment after. The choice to change, the decision to see people instead of obstacles. That night back home, all four of us now, we sat around the living room. Sharon was studying. Tyrell and Daniel were building something with Legos. I was just watching, soaking it in. "Dad, you good?" Daniel asked, noticing my stare. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how I almost missed this. All of it. I was so focused on building things that I forgot to build a life." Tyrell looked up from the Legos. "But you figured it out. That's what matters. I figured it out because of you, because you showed me what real strength looks like." The kid shrugged, embarrassed. "I just did what anyone should do. But not everyone does. That's the difference." Sharon closed her textbook. "You know what I think? I think we all saved each other. Tyrell saved Daniel. You saved this neighborhood by changing your mind. Daniel saved you by giving you purpose. And you all saved me by showing me family isn't just blood." She was right. We were a patchwork family, stitched together by crisis and choice. Nothing traditional about us, everything right. A year later, Caroline came home. Not to stay, she and I were done, but to build a relationship with Daniel. It was awkward at first. Years of absence aren't erased overnight. But Daniel had learned forgiveness from watching Tyrell forgive him for being the son of a developer who'd hurt his community. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Daniel told me when I worried about Caroline's return. "Even Mom." Wisdom from a 16-year-old. My son, the philosopher. The Together project became a national model. I was invited to speak at conferences, write articles, consult on projects, but I kept my focus local. There was still work to do right here. Tyrell, now 13, had started a youth council. Kids from the neighborhood meeting weekly to identify problems and propose solutions. They got a skate park built, convinced the city to fix broken streetlights, organized a community garden expansion. "You're creating leaders," I told Sharon, watching Tyrell run a meeting with kids twice his age. "I'm creating my son," she corrected. "He's creating himself. I just don't get in the way." Daniel joined the youth council. Together, he and Tyrell were unstoppable. The disabled rich kid and the poor black boy who saved him, breaking every stereotype, inspiring everyone around them. Sometimes I think about that day in the rain, how everything hung on a single choice. Tyrell could have walked away. He should have walked away. I'd given him and his community every reason to let my son suffer the consequences of my actions, but he didn't. He chose grace. And that grace rippled out in ways none of us could have predicted, changing not just my life but an entire neighborhood, proving that one person's courage can move mountains, or pull a drowning boy from mud that should have swallowed him whole. Last week, we broke ground on Phase 3, a school. State-of-the-art, fully accessible, free to neighborhood kids. Tyrell's idea. "Every kid deserves what rich kids get," he said. "Good teachers, new books, labs and art rooms. Why should zip codes decide futures?" Why indeed. At the groundbreaking, I handed the shovel to Tyrell. Let him turn the first earth. Cameras flashed, people applauded, but the moment I'll remember isn't the ceremony. It's after, when the crowds left. Just the four of us standing where the school would be. "You think we're really making a difference?" Daniel asked. I looked at Sharon, studying to be a nurse. At Tyrell, already changing his world at 13. At Daniel, who'd turned his pain into purpose. "I know we are," I said, "because the truth is we don't change the world with grand gestures. We change it with small choices repeated daily. The choice to see people, to listen, to care, to act when action is needed, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Tyrell taught me that. A skinny kid in broken shoes who did something impossible not because it was easy, but because it was right. And now we're all doing impossible things, building a better world one choice at a time together. Dear friends, what you just saw is only one part of the bigger picture. In the next video, I'll reveal the twist no one saw coming, so make sure you're here when it drops. I would love to know what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much, and don't forget to give this video a like, hit the subscribe button and share with someone who needs to hear it.